Hey, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ivy, and today I'm going to be talking about Jackaby by William Ritter. So the year is 1892, I think. Our main character, Abigail Rook, is a young lady, and she's arriving in New Fiddleham, which is a town in New England. I think it's fictional, but I'm not 100% sure. Once she gets to New Fiddleham, Abigail finds herself working for Jackaby, a detective who has the power to see supernatural things, and no one else can see these things. They end up, trying to solve a case, going on an adventure, and it's basically Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Sherlock, and that is a match made in heaven. This book was so much fun. I can't even describe to you how happy it made me. It's just such a whirlwind of an adventure. I was smiling half the time when I was reading it. Jackaby's character is just utterly fantastic. He is definitely 100% heavily influenced by Sherlock, but I don't mind that because I love Sherlock. However, it's not just a carbon copy of Sherlock, because you have the twist where Jackaby's whole thing is that he can see the supernatural. He's just so weird in the best way. He's so charming and adorable. I would love to be able to follow him around and just observe him. Maybe not be his friend, because I feel like he wouldn't like me very much because I'm probably too boring for him, but just being around him would be so much fun. Another interesting thing about Jackaby is the fact that he doesn't pay attention to the things that normal detectives would. There's a scene in there when Abigail looks in the trash can at one of the crime scenes, and she asks Jackaby if he noticed it, and he was like, "What? No, why would you look in the trash can?" They really balance each other out in a really great way, which I love. I also adored the writing style. It was executed so well. I really don't know what it is about it. It was just so straightforward and accessible and easy to understand, but it didn't feel like the author was dumbing it down at all. It was so incredibly funny. I can't even tell you how many times I laughed in this book, but let me just say, it was a lot. The writing is just so clever and witty, and exactly what you need in a book like this, because otherwise it would be very boring, but just the constant back and forth between Jackaby and Abigail is just, perfection. The supernatural elements of this book were weaved in so well, so seamlessly. I thought they were all so fascinating. I was never bored with them, and I never thought that's a little too weird and too over the top. Here is my one complaint. I loved this book overall. The atmosphere, the characters, the writing, everything that I've talked about so far was great. However, the thing that I did not enjoy as much was the mystery. And I know what you're thinking, Ivy, isn't that the whole point of this book? How can you like it and not enjoy the mystery? It's about what the book is for me, and I had fun with it, and I don't know, I didn't mind that the mystery wasn't that great. Basically, my problem with it was just too boring. It was so simple, just nothing really special about it at all, other than the supernatural elements, of course. The thing is, I figured it out pretty much immediately, and yes, I was very proud of myself for that. I gave myself a pat on the back, but at the same time, it was disappointing that I didn't have to guess more, because I was just oh, well, there you go, there's the answer, and it kind of took some of the fun out of it. That really is my only complaint, and while that is a pretty big complaint, I still really enjoyed this book, a lot, so I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read it if you're into mysteries, if you're into things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think you will love this book. So now I'm gonna get into some spoilers, so if you haven't read Jackaby yet, I highly, again, recommend that you go do that, and then once you have, you can come back and we can talk about it, and it'll be great. Goodbye to those of you who have not read this book. Okay, the scene where Abigail first met Jackaby made me so excited. It was at this moment when I was I'm gonna love this book. That first meeting scene is everything to me. The way he's just casually yeah, I totally know, everywhere that you've been, and I just, So good. I loved Abigail's like little backstory. Granted, she's not developed super duper well, but I do love the little bit that we get where she went on this expedition because she was looking for adventure. She didn't want to go to college, but she goes on this expedition and it ends up being a complete and total failure, and I love that so much. I thought it was so funny. Another thing that I really loved about Abigail was how just funny and stupid she was. Not stupid, but just the things that she would say, the mistakes she would make, the assumptions she made about Jackaby and what he does, and like as a detective, what he should be, were just so funny. Oh my god, it was so funny. It was so refreshing to have a main character who messes up literally like every other page. She has no idea what she's doing. She's not going to be perfect as soon as she starts doing this whole detective thing. She makes a fool of herself like the whole time, and I love that so much. Like, yes, there was definitely some secondhand embarrassment going on, but at the same time, it just made me love her so much. It took me until chapter 3 to fall in love with Jackaby. I already talked about him, but he's just my baby, and I adore him. He reminds me so much of Sherlock from the show Sherlock. I love my weird detectives. Abigail obviously has, like gotten the flyer and she's tagging along with Jackaby on the first case. And again, this is like when she's seeing her first dead body and it really freaks her out and she almost, throws up. Thank goodness, because I feel like too many times characters will just get thrust into these whole new terrifying situations and act like everything's fine, this is just another day. But Abigail, is actually like reacting the way, humans do. As they're investigating the first crime scene where Arthur Bragg was killed, Abigail is noticing all the like mundane, like normal details, while Jackaby notices some supernatural stuff, which is why they make such a great team. They notice that the body has not enough blood for like the size of the wound or whatever, which, is freaky. I immediately was like, vampire. Obviously it wasn't a vampire, but whatever. Not detective. Inspector, is that what his title is? Inspector Marlowe cracked me up. Mostly his interactions with Jackaby. Like, throughout this book, when Jackaby is interacting with anyone ever, and they're like so just fed up with him and exhausted and annoyed, and Jackaby either ignores it or is just completely oblivious. Either way, it's so funny, and I eat that stuff up. They talk to Mr. Henderson, who is a guy in the apartment building who heard a clinking noise, and the clinking noise just immediately just gave it away, but we'll get to that in a minute. The whole Banshee thing with Mrs. Morrigan scared the crap out of me. The concept of the Banshee and what she does is just utterly terrifying. Just the fact that you're the only one who can hear it, but it's literally like predicting your death is just... no thank you. So then Abigail sees Commissioner Swift for the first time, and I knew it immediately. The fact that it made a point to mention the leg braces, just a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, oh, they're obviously, it's obviously the leg braces are making the clinking noise. It was so easy, and I don't know, bro. We also confirm that Arthur Bragg was Commissioner Swift's newspaper connection, which again, how much more obvious could it have possibly been? They find the map with all the weird markings, which they later figure out is where all the killings took place. We also learn a little bit more about why Jackaby is the way he is. I mean, not really, but we know he's called a seer and he's the only one in the world. There's also mention of the previous seer before him, but Jackaby is very quick to shut Abigail down and refuses to talk about that. I, of course, am really hoping that we learn more about this mysterious seer. I almost said slayer. Hatun was such a fascinating character to me because I love not being able to tell what's actually real and what's just in her head. That's just so much fun to me. Chapter 13 being omitted was so funny. I've never had a book do that before, and it just, oh my god. This whole book, everything about this book is just utterly hilarious. Jenny, the ghost who's living in Jackaby's house, is so awesome. Basically, the house used to be her family's, and Jackaby is the only one who treated her like a normal person and wasn't terrified of her, so that's why she kind of like lets him live there. I love their cute little relationship. The pond room in the house is like the coolest thing ever, and I want to go there so bad. Also, Douglas the duck, Jackaby's old assistant, got turned into a duck, and now he doesn't want to be turned back. Honestly, if I got turned into a duck, I don't know if I would want to turn back into a human, because as a duck, you don't have to deal with all this stupid life stuff, you know? You just get to fly around and swim and eat and sleep. Our duo is starting to piece some things together. They realize from the map that the killer is probably in New Fiddleham and has just been, like, killing around the city to, like, confuse the authorities and stuff. We also obviously know now that he killed Arthur Bragg because he was kind of figuring things out. When Jackaby finally gives Abigail a room, I was so excited. I was like, yes, this needs to be permanent. Y'all just need to keep working together because I love you both so much. The scene with Jackaby making breakfast, or, you know, destroying breakfast, made me so happy again. Like, there's just so many cute scenes in this book, but that adorable breakfast scene is quickly interrupted when we learn that Mr. Henderson has been killed. At the crime scene, Jackaby notices some mysterious scratch marks on the door, which I guess, looking back now, they were from Charlie. Jackaby and Abigail end up being arrested because Jackaby's tuning fork was with Mr. Henderson to, you know, deal with the whole banshee thing. They end up in jail. Like, what more could you want from a book like this? But while they're in jail, they start hearing Mrs. Morrigan, which that whole, like, 2 or 3 chapters or so, when they were hearing that, was pretty intense. I was surprised, because we went from this super lighthearted, you know, woohoo, having fun, solving crime, to, like, oh my gosh, we're all gonna die, and we're all in so much pain and sadness, and it was intense. But then Mrs. Morrigan gets killed, and this also leads us to believe that the killer knows what he or she is doing, and by he or she, I mean he, because it was obviously Swift the entire time. Another really funny scene was when they were getting released from jail, and like the guy who was giving them back their things was talking about how much he hates it when Jackaby's there because he has like 50,000 things in his pockets. So we finally reached the climax. But actually, before we talk about that, I just wanted to quickly mention that I was a little suspicious of Marlowe for like a split second, because the clinking, they were always describing the clinking that his handcuffs were making as he walked. So Jackaby has gotten all the police gathered in like the town square, and he's talking to them, and basically he's gonna like figure it out or whatever, but none of them are taking him seriously, and I was so mad at all of them because literally no one else knows what they're doing except for Jackaby. Like, why won't you listen to him? When Charlie, this like cute policeman, but changes into like this werewolf thing, but like not actually a werewolf, Abigail was so quick to just be like, oh my gosh, he's a monster. She went from being like really into him and like flirty to like hating him just because, oh my gosh, he's like a werewolf thing. Like, I get that that's scary, but you don't just automatically assume because someone turns into a dog that they're evil. I do think that the whole plot line with the romance, I mean, it definitely wasn't romance level, but like flirtation was just kind of useless. Like, why was that in there? Charlie gets chased by a mob. It's not that I dislike Charlie, I just he's fine. He was there. He's kind of cute, I guess. I didn't want him to get killed by the angry mob, though. Like, don't get me wrong. I didn't want anything bad to happen to him. Him, like, protecting Abigail did make me like him, that he risked so much and, you know, got really hurt. But anyway, we're in, like, the forest, and Abigail hits her head and gets separated from Jackaby, which is, like, already bad. She sees Commissioner Swift literally standing over a dead body, and she doesn't think, that's kind of suspicious. She would be really bad at Among Us. You see this guy standing above a dead body, and your immediate thought is, oh, he's paying his respects. No, he just killed that guy. So then, of course, Commissioner Swift attacks her, and Charlie comes and saves the day, except not really, because he gets really beat up and impaled and stuff. Abigail throws some books like the hero that she is, but again, that's what I really liked about her, was that she's pretty much useless in this situation. But I mean, she does her best by, you know, throwing books. Jackaby comes and, you know, shoots the dang thing. So we learn that Swift is a redcap, which he's basically like a goblin who survives by soaking human blood into his cap, which is just ew. But Jackaby drops that hat into the fire and Swift burns alive, you know, because he was awful and a seriously terrifying murderer. We also learn that Charlie is part of like the Canine, which definitely not pronouncing that right, but basically he's in like this nomadic dog tribe, so he's not a werewolf, but he's like a were-dog. He's super loyal, like that's one of their like things, I guess, and he can't really control his transformation when he gets super loyal to someone, which I guess is kind of cute. Like, he's obviously in love with Abigail, but he has to leave because he can't stand New Fiddleham after what happened. So he and Jackaby and Abigail say their goodbyes. I definitely think we're gonna see him again in the next books. I could be wrong, but I think we will. At the memorial for all the murder victims, Jackaby puts the iron shoes on top of Swift's coffin to kind of make a statement and protest what the police did, because basically they just blamed everything on Charlie and said that Swift was one of the victims rather than having their, like, commissioner be evil. So I thought that was really funny, and I just really appreciate how Jackaby is just not afraid to speak his mind, to do what he wants, and just not give any craps about what everyone else will think of him. The last scene of this book made me so happy because Jackaby didn't want Abigail to go with him, like, on cases anymore, because he obviously cares about her. He's obviously super attached to her now. Abigail was like, sir, I am coming with you because I am part of this now. Also, him giving her the notebook and the magnifying glass after she asked for them like 50 times because she was like, if I'm a detective, I need these things. Such a perfect way to end this book. So overall, I obviously really enjoyed this book. Like I said, the thing that I didn't like was the mystery itself, but honestly, everything else was just so good, so well done. It made me so freaking happy. I am beyond excited to read the rest of these books and just go on more adventures with these characters. I cannot wait. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it did not make me cry. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye.